Engineers are total geeks for solving problems, but which problems they solve depends on the individual. For one, it might be a noble quest for a better future. For another, it's a compulsive search for an answer to their own questions. And for still others, it's a matter of necessity. What they want doesn't exist, so they have to make it. I have a lot of respect for each of these engineers because I've worn many of these hats myself. So what problem am I solving today? Race car go. Welcome back to Inheritance Machining. It's that time of year again. Build time for Formula SAE. If you know, you know. And if you don't, you're about to. At hundreds of universities around the world, students have formed groups to design, build, and compete in race cars. Formula-style race cars. They're often on their own, raising funds, doing all the design work, and making the hundreds of parts needed for the cars. How do I know? Well, I was one of these lucky bastards. A long time ago. The point is, my old team at University of Kentucky needs some help. Maybe it's a third life crisis or something, but I want to see the car go fast. So we're going to make their front wheel spindles, which is kind of an honor because it's such an important part. Without these, the front wheels won't roll, or steer, or even attach to the car. I guess you could say this about anything on a race car, but let me puff myself up a little bit, okay? The point is, they're not exactly the simplest parts to make, at least not without access or desire for CNC. It does, however, mean I get to spend a lot of quality time with my beloved lathe. Now, as if this part being complicated wasn't enough, the dollars I spent on just this material raises the stakes another order of magnitude. 2 feet of 4.5-inch 7075 aluminum with a 651 temper. But I figured since I'm already deep in the hole, I splurged on some aluminum-specific carbide inserts. They have some sort of special coating on them that I don't remember, but they're shiny, and shiny means not sticky. These will cut like a hot knife through butter, and will be worth every last penny I spent on them.
Oh yeah. Alright, that was worth every penny.
While not exactly the trickiest area of this part, I am going to knock out the bore on the spindle first. That is, while I've got mass in my favor. Boring bars, especially ones packing as much length as my friend here, tend to vibrate. So the heavier the part, the less likely she'll start to vibrate, because once she starts hollering, we're all in for a bad time. This might be exacerbated by the lack of aluminum insert because, well, I'm not perfect. But I do have a nifty coolant port on this fella, so fingers crossed that keeps things manageable. That seems to be working. Must be doing something right. It's going to be hard for you to see what's going on inside here, because I can't see it either. But here's the general shape. The only thing really to note is that there's a taper way down in there. Some people might even call this a chamfer. It's me. I'm some people. To hit that, I'll just bring the boring bar in the correct depth, then switch to feeding the compound slide already set to 45 degrees. By the way, I want to take a quick moment to mention Onshape, our CAD sponsor. While it didn't design this part, it had no hesitation importing another software's model so I could get all the dimensions I really needed to make this understandable for my machines, providing more evidence on my stance that this is the best modeling software I've ever used. Get 6 months free at onshape.pro/inheritance machining and experience what an install-free, available anywhere professional modeling software is all about. Looks good from out here. Now for the outside, and we're going to bring a little support in the form of a bullnose center. I'm not saying I've made parts exactly like this in the past, but I'm also not saying that. Let's get to hogging. Now, I started this video talking about engineers, and I'm usually an engineer out of necessity. I need a tool that doesn't exist, so I make it. So making a race car part is a bit of a departure from my norm. But my favorite thing is, well, machining. So when a project comes along that I don't even have to design, it's literally a win-win. I just get the pleasure of the fun part. Well, it's not all fun. But when you find that sweet spot in the speeds and feeds, those snaky snakes hit just right. Am I the only one that feels a strange compulsion to keep these as pets? I will tell you though, there is something that keeps me more hydrated than my tool chest on lathe day. And that's Element, the sponsor of this video. It's an electrolyte drink that I've been pounding back religiously for about a year at this point. No joke, this is what my recycling bin looks like because I can't get enough of this stuff. And I don't feel bad about it either because, as they like to say, there's nothing dodgy in it. No caffeine, no sugar, just sodium, potassium, magnesium, and some badass flavors. I basically love all of them, but I can't really get enough of the watermelon lately, which is good because it comes in both sparkling and flavor packs that you mix with water. Though once you try it, you might be adding it to more than just water. Seriously though, Element is a genuine part of my life that I drink every day because I like the way it makes me feel. Steady energy, no brain fog, and great flavor. Try it yourself and see what I mean. Get a free 8-count sample pack of the most popular drink mix flavors with any purchase at drinklmnt.com/inheritance. Hone in on your favorite flavor or share it with a friend, but keep your projects well hydrated. With most of this guy roughed out, I'm ready for some of the fancy stuff. This exterior corner I left needs to turn into an interior radius, otherwise known as a fillet, or a fillet if you're feeling fancy. The perfect opportunity to use my custom radius turner. Damn, still not finished. Well anyway, a quick and dirty form tool will have to do. And what's quicker is I already have one the right size. Just needs a little touch up on the grinder and we're good to go. Now, being such a wide cut, this can go horrifically wrong very quickly, breaking the cutter, gouging the part, or even worse, leaving some chatter. But the gods have shown me favor today. That's about as perfect as it gets, ouchie mama. Got some more fillets to knock out, so we're going to use the old button turner. This one I did get some glimmery goodness for. No snakes to pet this time, but who cares with a finish like that? And uncoincidentally, that radius it just left is the exact size I needed. So that just leaves this one here, which of course is not the same radius as the other two. But the tool chest came to my rescue once again because I've got a brazed carbide radius tool exactly the size I need. I'm beginning to suspect this is going a little too smoothly. Anyway, to get the round right, we gotta turn it right round. And other than running the lathe in reverse, this is just like the others. Ooh yeah, you're coming home with me. Now those are some finely filleted phalanges, if I do say so myself.
Sexy!
Time to switch from these risky radii onto the demanding diameters. And this next area is probably the most important to get right. I know this because, well, it's got the tightest tolerance. I mean, it's so tight, K5 doesn't even come up on most shaft tolerance charts. Even AI couldn't give me a straight answer. But I eventually tracked down a reference, albeit questionable, and discovered how narrow my margin for error really is. This region is meant to be a transition fit for the spindle bearings, and my window is only 2/10,000ths of an inch wide. So I'm going to do my due diligence here and just double check that my mic is reading spot on to the reference blocks. It sure would be silly to overshoot this dimension and scrap this entire spindle. Honestly, this is already going to be hard enough to hit with a lathe readout that only goes down to 5/10,000ths of an inch. But somehow, by pure chance, as I approach that oh-so-critical measurement, the passes were lining up for a perfect placement in the dead middle of that tolerance window. That is what I call exhilarating. With the bearing journal in the bag, we just have to finish up this end with some threads. A little prep work to get the proper diameter and clearances we need, and we can rouse the lathe's lead screw into action, setting the metric pitch for 2mm, and popping the lead screw in reverse. Lead screw in reverse. One of the spindles in the pair I'm making calls for a left-hand thread, so might as well knock that out before I forget. I'm quite surprised how smoothly this has gone so far, so I decided to call it a night. And that's when I was sitting at the dinner table reflecting on the success of the day when it hit me. The sinking feeling slammed me so hard the food nearly fell out of my mouth. I knew. I f***ed up. That left-hand thread I did myself a favor with was no favor at all. It belonged on the other end of this spindle, meaning this is scrap. I held out a glimmer of hope that the team could work around this, so sent the regretful email, and began work once again on spindle number 1, crossing my fingers it could be number 2. The funny thing about making duplicates of parts is that the first one always takes the longest. There's extra time in sorting out the tooling you need, thinking through the process, and generally just getting familiar with what you're making. So when the second one comes around, you can approach it with a sense of confidence and a plan, letting you really drop into the beautiful flow state of execution. But we can't get too comfortable because the process has changed. Remember, we got to get this thread right. There we go. Subtly different, but also crucially different. Let's continue with the rest of this before I get these mixed up. We now have the other half to take care of, meaning we have to delicately hold on to this with some soft jaws. I definitely don't want to booger up the most important face on this part. Speaking of facing, I've got quite a bit to take off here. I'd like to do that supported though, so just a skim pass so I have a nice interface for the live center, then I can really dig in. With the thread area prepared, you can probably guess what's next. Now is time for that left-hand thread. Just a sanity check on the pitch with the only metric instrument I have on hand, and we can enter the penultimate turning operation on this part. Last but not least is this guy. You can probably guess what we're going to do to this corner here, and you would be wrong, because it's time we turn the corner with this part. See what I did there? Alright, that's enough time at the lathe. I mean, I could stand here forever, but the lathe isn't going to manage all the other stuff we need to do to this spindle. At least I'm not going to subject myself to that particular hell. So over to the mill. I've already got things set up with the rotary table, so we can just pop the chuck on here and go to town. First finding the edges with the edges finder. Then poking 16 evenly spaced holes around the tip. I also went ahead and flipped this in the chuck for 16 more evenly spaced holes, only threaded this time. I'll admit I don't exactly know what these are for, but I'm just the machinist. Design brain, no function right now. Now for the phalanges. To get at these, I'll need to lay this whole thing down, but that's just not going to work. There's clearly no room to get anything done in here, at least not for what I have in store for this, so it's over to the vise. Fortunately, the symmetry we need is achievable without actually needing to rotate anything, but we still need to find the center. Only then can we break ground on the brake flange. It's got a 6 lug pattern for a floating type rotor, hence the half holes around the perimeter, but these have an oddball diameter, so it's time to really use our head. The boring head, of course. I gotta approach this cautiously though, because I don't exactly know where I'm starting. It'd be super easy to overshoot the diameter, especially with how questionable it is to measure this with calipers. So to be a little more accurate about it, I turned up a custom gauge pin, right at the diameter I need. And once I dial it in on the first hole, I can just whip through the rest like splickety-lit. But we're not yet done with our boring buddy here. Now that I know what diameter it's cutting, I can crank it out to another known diameter, the one for these scallops. These are mostly for weight reduction, so the tolerances aren't deathly critical, but if you couldn't tell, getting things spot on is pretty exhilarating for me. The approach on this is different, of course, because I can't just take the whole bite at once. Nobody wants to see that. So stepping in progressively from the side prevents catastrophe. And on the last pass, I let the quill feed do the work to give a perfect surface finish. Ain't it beautiful? The edges are a little dangerous though, so perfect excuse to chamfer, both top and bottom. Now that's what I'm talking about. Let's turn it up a notch and do the wheel side. While I didn't pay particular attention to aligning the other features with the holes we initially drilled in this tip, I will take the time to at least align these two flanges. It's a bit tedious because of course the only thing I have to reference are the half holes in the lower flange, but getting it within a few thou will be good enough that most eyeballs would agree it's straight. Anyway, after refining the center, we can poke some holes in this flange as well. This time full circle ones, how fancy. And threaded, even better. Then it's back to our boring old ways, scooping out some big tasty fillets. This of course left a lot of pointy bits that just aren't going to fly. So in the absence of a rotary table, let's bust out something even cooler, the Volstro. The best way to describe this is, it's like a rotary table, but for the end mill instead of the part. It lets me move the cutter in a circle at whatever radius I choose, meaning I can whip around the central board to remove all those pesky peaks. Combine that with 1 thou precision on the radius and 5 arc minute resolution on the angle, and we can get some pretty tasty tangential blending. Repositioning over the 4 lug holes and cranking the radius back down, we can clean up these final corners as well. Now that part looks ready to go fast, but what about the other spindle? Well, the team got back to me and they said they'd be open to the goofy thread if I could just make a nut to fit it, and that just didn't sit well with me. So I'm gonna do this right. Besides, I love this part. I was reflecting back on my time with the Formula SAE team, about who I was then, what lessons I learned, and what hardships were still to come. And I can't help but think, man, am I grateful for that experience. Engineers can get kind of a bad rap for being, well, nerds, dorks, gearheads, perfectionists. But at the core, we just like problems. We like solving them. My time on the team was some of the earliest hands-on experience I had at solving problems I was interested in. I learned design, teamwork, and heck, even machining. All skills that rolled downhill into this shop, this channel, and this story. If you're in college and any of this resonates with you, see if there's a team on your campus. And if you're past college life, consider supporting your alma mater's formula team. The world has problems, so we need great problem solvers. For me, I'm happy I was able to help the next generation get a little closer to their dream. As always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.